The wind tastes of stone and distance. It is a new cold, a sharp-toothed predator unlike the familiar bite of winter. The old one, her face a mask of deeply carved lines, squints at the northern horizon. Her people, a clan of 23 Homo sapiens, Fianet 2. The air, thin and brittle, carries a scent that silences the birds and sends a tremor through the foraging reindeer herd. They see it not as a weather front, but as a living thing, a churning, white wall devouring the sky. This is the unforgiving calculus of prehistoric life, a constant, brutal negotiation with an indifferent world. The hunters, their spears still slick from a recent kill, abandon the half-butchered carcass. Meat is life. But life is motion, and the wall is moving faster than any beast they have ever tracked. A silent consensus ripples through the group. A communication born not of words but of shared instinct, a cornerstone of hominid history. They must reach the rock shelter. Mothers pull children close, their small hands disappearing into thick fur wraps. Two young males heave the best haunches of reindeer onto their shoulders, a gamble on a future that is shrinking with every gust of wind. The old one points with a jawbone-handled flint knife not toward the easiest path, but the most direct, the path of greatest risk and greatest speed. They move as one body, a desperate, scrambling organism against the vast, indifferent landscape of this ancient earth. The first flakes of snow, hard and sharp as chipped quartz, begin to sting their exposed skin. The world dissolves into a grey chaos. The wind's howl becomes a physical force, pushing, clawing, trying to peel them from the mountainside. It steals their breath and blinds their eyes. A child, no more than 4 inches old, stumbles, a small cry swallowed by the gale. Without hesitation, a young hunter, burdened by his own load of meat, sweeps the child up, settling the small body against his neck. This is the unbreakable law of their survival. A lesson etched into the very marrow of human evolution. The young are the clan's memory of the future. The rock shelter, a familiar dark gash in the cliff face, appears and disappears through the blinding snow. It is their only landmark, their only hope. They pour into its opening, gasping, their chests burning with cold and effort. The smell of damp earth and old smoke a welcome comfort. But the storm follows them, its fury undiminished. A horrifying track, loud as a spitting mountain, echoes from above. The old one looks up, her eyes wide not with fear, but with stark, final understanding. The snow, heavy and wet, has overloaded the ancient pines clinging to the cliff edge. A tremor runs through the stone beneath their feet. Then comes the sound of deep, guttural roar as a mountain of snow, rock, and splintered wood breaks free. The light at the mouth of the shelter does not fade. It is snuffed out. A solid, crushing thump seals them in total darkness, the ensuing silence more terrifying than the storm's roar. Their sanctuary has become their tomb. The darkness is absolute, a solid thing that presses against the eyes and fills the lungs. For a long moment, the only sound is the frantic, ragged breathing of 23 trapped animals. Panic, a cold and greasy presence, begins to swither through the small chamber. A child's whimper cuts through the tension, sharp as a flint shard. It is the sound that breaks the spell. The old one's voice, raspy and low, slices through the fear. It is not a command, but a statement of fact: we are not dead. A rustling sound follows, the scrape of stone on stone. One of the hunters is working his fire-starting kit. A spark catches on the tinder of dried fungus. A tiny flame springs to life, weak and yellow, pushing back the immense weight of the dark. In the flickering, unsteady light, their prison is revealed. The entrance is completely choked by a solid wall of impacted snow, splintered wood, and dark, wet earth. The air is already growing thin, heavy with the scent of unwashed bodies and fear. The archaeology of their immediate future will be written here, in this cramped space. They take stock. 2 haunches of reindeer, already stiffening with cold. A small pile of firewood, gathered for a single night's comfort, now a priceless treasure. And the tools they carry, the flint knives, The bone awls, the stone spear points. This is the entirety of their world, a microcosm of the struggle faced by all ancient humans. The Old One takes charge, her authority unquestioned. She points to the wood, then holds up one gnarled finger. One piece, for now. The fire is fed, but not feasted. Its purpose is no longer comfort, but survival. Days bleed into one another, measured only by the disciplined rhythm of sleep and wake of signals, of hunger and the meager rationing of meat. Kale, the hunter with quiet hands, becomes the keeper of the larder. He uses a flake of chert, its edge worked to a razor sharpness, a simple but effective piece of lithic technology to shave off impossibly thin slices of the frozen venison. Each member receives their share, the portions for the very young and the old one slightly larger, a silent acknowledgement of the clan's priorities. This is the harsh algebra of their existence, the core of their survival skills. The gnawing dark is not just outside them, in the frozen world, but inside as well. The cold is a constant thief, stealing warmth from their limbs. The hunger is a dull, ever-present take. And worst of all is the silence from beyond the wall. A profound and terrifying stillness that speaks of a world buried as deeply as they are. An elder, his cough growing wetter by the cycle, gives his portion to his grandchild, turning his face to the cave wall. It is an act of pure altruism, a final gift from one generation to the next, a testament to the bonds that define these human ancestors in the deep annals of prehistory. They huddle together for warmth, a mass of shivering bodies,
side by side,
their individual
the
fears
raft
submerged in a
balanced
collective,
between them,
desperate hope.
across the open
The pile of
plain
wood
toward
shrinks
the
to a
river.
handful of splinters. The last reindeer bone is scraped clean. The fire, their small, defiant sun, gutters and dies, plunging them back into that first, total darkness. In the suffocating, silent black, a new sound emerges. It is the rhythmic, desperate scrape of a fingernail against stone. They mind, close to breaking, is trying to claw its way back to reality. The sound stops, replaced by a dull, wet thud as a fist beats weakly against the impassable wall. The despair is no longer a slow-moving predator. It is a choking presence, filling the void left by the fire. Then, another sound, the sharp crack of bone on stone. Tail, his hand moving with purpose in the darkness, has picked up the splintered femur of the reindeer. He strikes it against the rock face of the cave, a spark of an idea igniting in the hollows of his starved mind. The sound is solid, ringing. He turns and strikes the wall of debris. The sound is different, a dull, dense thud. Not stone. It is packed earth, ice, and wood. It can be broken. The Old One understands instantly. Her voice, now thin and dreary, carries the weight of a final command. Dig. It is the most profound act of primitive technology, born not in a sunlit clearing but in a lightless tomb. They have no shovels, so they use the broad, flat shoulder blades of the reindeer. They have no picks, so they use the sharpened points of femurs and the heavy napping stones they carry for making their ancient tools. This is the crucible where the abstract thought of early humans is hammered into a brutal, physical reality. They work in shifts, a rhythm dictated by the last dregs of their strength, the strongest, fueled by a terrifying, cold fury, attack the world, two at a time. They scrape, they stab, they pull up the frozen mass. The others huddle behind them, dragging the loosened debris back into the cramped cave, their hands
Filled with
raw and
grit
bleeding.
determination.
The air fills with the
journey
dust of
back
dry
is
earth
slow
and the
and
grunts of
exhausting.
immense effort. They are a single, desperate organism, its only purpose to break the skin of its prison. For a people whose history spans back across 1,000,000 years, this is a new kind of hunt. They are hunting for the sky. After an eternity of labor, a sliver of something different. A young woman, her fingers numb and torn, feels a breath of impossible cold against her hand. A muffled cry escapes her lips. They swarm the spot, digging with renewed frenzy. A tiny, brilliant point of light appears. It is painfully bright. a star born in their constellation of blackness. They claw at the opening, widening it until a man can squeeze through. He emerges, not into the world he knew, but into a nightmare of white. The blizzard has scoured the landscape, snapping ancient trees and burying familiar hills under mountainous drifts. The world is silent, sterile, undalien. One by one, they crawl out of their grave, gaunt and blinking, their eyes streaming in the pale, indifferent light. They are not victorious heroes. They are ghosts, returned to a dead world. The Old One is the last to emerge. She leans on her bone pick, her gaze sweeping across the desolation. She sees no shelter, no game, only the endless, hostile weight. Her eyes fix on a single, wind-blasted juniper bush. Its meager berries a speck of color in the monochrome emptiness. Her duty is not to celebrate survival, but to begin the endless task of foraging. The price of escaping the tomb is to be born again into the Ice Age. We pull back from the shivering figures on the white canvas, our perspective ascending until they are specks in an immense, frozen world. The story of these Homo sapiens is not one of triumph, but of a fundamental shift in the planet's evolutionary narrative. For eons, life had been shaped by tooth and claw, by speed and show. But here, in a lightless cave, something new declared its power collective or fused with abstract thought. They did not outrun the storm or overpower the ice. They endured it. They outfought it. Using the bones of the dead to claw their way back to the living was not just an act of desperation, it was a declaration. It was the moment that human ancestors confirmed that the most potent survival tool was not a sharp claw, but a shared idea. This is the bedrock of anthropology, understanding that the fragile social contract, the unspoken agreement to work together in the dark, is the single most successful survival strategy this world has ever produced. Their struggle, a forgotten ordeal from 0.1 million years ago, is the quiet prologue to our own complex societies, a distant echo in our DNA that reminds us that we survived the ice not as individuals, but as a species that learned to make a sun out of bone. The ice remembers nothing, but the fire, however small, leaves a trace of ash, and in that ash, we read the story of the flame. But what happens when the greatest threat is not the ice, but the reflection in the water?